If your website copy is trying to speak to every possible client, it's probably not connecting with any of them. And I know that sounds backwards, right? Being broad feels safe. Being specific feels risky. But that instinct is costing you clients. And I want to get into why. So today I want to talk about website copy for travel advisors, and specifically something I call the everybody equals nobody rule, which is when your copy tries to appeal to everybody, it ends up reaching nobody in any meaningful way. And most advisor sites are doing exactly that without even realizing it. So I'm going to walk through what that looks like, why it happens, because honestly, it makes a lot of sense why it happens, why being more specific than feels comfortable is actually what brings in better clients, and then some practical stuff you can do on your own site if you recognize any of this. So let's get into it. I'm Justin Hinkle, and this is the Travel Advisor Website Show. Go ahead and subscribe. Okay, so picture this. Someone's been planning a trip, let's say a cruise. They've been thinking about it for a while, they've done some Googling, and they're just completely overwhelmed. Too many cruise lines, too many ships, too many itineraries, and they have no idea how to compare any of it. So they think, okay, I'm going to find a travel advisor who actually knows this stuff. They start looking around, they land on your website. And your homepage says something like, I help make your travel dreams come true, or passionate about travel and dedicated to your experience. Or maybe it's, let me plan your perfect getaway. And that person reads it and thinks, okay, that's nice, but they don't feel anything from it. They don't feel like you're talking to them specifically. And they don't feel like you've ever met someone in their exact situation. So they keep looking. And here's the thing. They might have been a perfect client. Like, they might have booked a cruise with you and then come back for a Europe trip and referred 3 of their friends. But your copywriting didn't give them a reason to stay. It didn't say anything that made them feel like they'd found the right place. That's the everybody equals nobody rule in action. Copy that tries to speak to every traveler ends up speaking to no traveler in particular. And the people who actually need what you offer, they just keep scrolling. So let me explain what I mean by the everybody equals nobody rule, because I want to be specific about it and not just leave it as a catchy phrase. The rule is this. The more broadly you write your copy, the more you try to make it to appeal to every possible type of traveler, the less it actually connects with any individual person who lands on your site. It just becomes background noise. It washes over people. They read it, they don't feel anything, and they move on. And the reason this happens is actually pretty simple if you think about it. People aren't looking for a travel advisor who helps everyone. They're looking for someone who helps people like them, who understands their specific situation, who's dealt with their specific problem before. And if your copy doesn't signal any of that, if it's just general language about travel and passion and experiences, there's nothing for them to grab onto. Nothing that makes them go, okay, this person actually gets it. So the fix, and I know this sounds backwards, is to get more specific. Not narrower necessarily, but specific. And I want to draw that distinction because I think advisors here be more specific, and then they think, oh, so now I can only work with one type of client. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying describe a real person in a real situation, because when the right person reads that, they feel seen. And feeling seen is what makes someone actually reach out. And here's the thing. I get why this happens. Like, I really do. Because when you're writing about your own business, you don't want to leave anyone out. You're sitting there thinking, well, I could help this person, I can help that person. And what if someone amazing comes along who it doesn't fit the description I just wrote? So you keep it open, you keep it general. You figure broad is just safer. And that logic makes sense. It's not irrational, but it is just wrong, because what you're not accounting for is what it actually feels like from the other side. The person landing on your site isn't thinking about all the types of travelers you could help. They're thinking about themselves, their trip, their situation. And they're looking for some kind of signal, any signal that you've helped someone like them before and that you know what you're doing for their specific thing. And generic copy just doesn't give them that. I help make your travel dreams come true. That doesn't tell them anything about who you actually work with or what you're actually good at. It's just nice words, and nice words do not convert. There's also something else going on here, which is when you've been doing this a while and you've worked with all kinds of clients, it can feel kind of weird to describe yourself as serving only one type of traveler. Because you haven't, right? You've done family trips and honeymoons and river cruises, group tours, all of it. And you're good at all of it. So writing specific copy can feel like you're lying or leaving stuff out. But again, specific does not mean narrow. You can absolutely still work with all kinds of clients. You're just choosing to describe one situation vividly enough that the person in that exact situation feels found. And that's a different thing than saying, I only work with this type of person and nobody else. So let me get into what specific actually looks like in practice, because I think the idea makes sense in theory, but it's harder to actually do. So the shift here is going from describing what you do to describing the person you help and the situation they're in when they find you. So instead of, I help families create unforgettable travel memories, you write something more like, most of the families I work with have been trying to plan a trip for months. Everyone's got opinions, nobody can agree, and every time you think you've landed on something, the prices have changed so the resort looks nothing like the photos. I've done this a few hundred times. I know how to cut through it. Those are two completely different things. The first one is about you and what you offer. The second one is about them, what they're actually going through. And if you're a parent who's been in that exact situation, which a lot of people have, you read that second one and you feel something. You feel a little relieved, honestly, like, okay, this person has seen this before. They're not going to judge me for being disorganized, and they actually know what they're doing. And that feeling, that small, oh, this person gets it moment, that's what gets someone to fill out your contact form or, request a consultation. It's not beautiful design. It's not a clever tagline. It's that moment of recognition. So one of the things my clients ask me a lot is, how do I even know what language to use? Like, how do I know what my ideal clients are actually thinking when they're out there looking for help? And honestly, my answer is, you probably already have it. You just haven't thought to look at it that way. If you've been doing this for any amount of time, you've had a lot of those first conversations with potential clients, and those conversations follow patterns. People come to you with similar situations. They say similar things. They've got the same worries, the same frustrations, the same thing they tried before they finally called you. So think about your last 10 inquiries. What did those people actually say when they reached out? What were they stressed about? What had they already tried that wasn't working? What's that one phrase you hear over and over that you've kind of stopped noticing because it's just so common at this point? Those phrases, those are gold, literally, because when someone reads their own words reflected back at them on a website, they feel seen, and that's really the whole thing. So go back through your emails. Look at those early messages before someone became a client. Look at the questions they asked you on that first call. What words did they actually use? Not the polished version, the actual version. We don't even know where to start. Every time we look into it, we just get more overwhelmed. I don't want to waste this vacation on the wrong resort. We tried to plan it ourselves and we just kept going in circles. Those sentences, those belong on your website. Not cleaned up into marketing language, but pretty much as is or close to it. Because the person who's in that situation right now reads it and goes, wait, how did they know that? That's exactly what I've been thinking. That's the everybody equals nobody rule working in reverse. Instead of writing for everyone, you're writing for the person who said that exact thing. And they find you and it feels like you already know them, and then they book the call. There's a specific version of this I want to call out, which is copy about the advisor instead of about the client. And it's really common. The homepage talks about the advisor's love of travel. The about page is basically a career history. The services page is organized around what the advisor offers rather than what the client's actually trying to accomplish. And look, I get it. It's your business. It feels natural to write about your business. But the person landing on your site doesn't care about your passion for travel yet. Not on the first visit. They're there to answer one question for themselves. Am I in the right place? Can this person actually help me with what I'm dealing with? And if the first thing they read is about you, your story, your journey, why you love travel, they have to do extra work just to figure out if any of that's even relevant to them. And extra work, like I've said before, is the enemy. Copy that works starts with them. Here's who I help. Here's the situation they're usually in when they find me. Here's what it looks like after we've worked together. And then Here's who I am and why I'm the one who can do this for you. And that order matters more than people realize. You kind of earn the right to talk about yourself once you've already shown that you understand their situation. Lead with them, then bring in you. If you flip that, if you lead with yourself, a lot of people are going to leave before they even get to the part that's actually relevant to them. I want to spend a minute on something that's kind of specific to travel advisors, which is the DIY traveler. You know the type I'm talking about, the person who finds your site, uses it to gather information, and then just books everything themselves. Or the person who asks you to price something out and then goes direct to save 20 bucks. Those clients are exhausting, if I'm being honest. They take up a lot of time and they don't really value what you do. And a lot of advisors deal with this constantly and just kind of assume that it's part of the job. But here's the thing, your website copy is either inviting those people in or it's not. And if you're attracting a lot of people who don't actually want to work with an advisor, they just want a free consultation or a price check, that's very often a copy problem. Not a those people are just out there problem. Generic copy, let me help you plan your perfect trip. It doesn't signal anything about the kind of relationship you're looking for. It doesn't communicate the value of what you actually do. It doesn't describe what it's like to work with you. So literally anybody can read it and think, sure, I'll reach out and see what they say. But copy that's specific, that describes the kind of client you work with best, that explains what working with you actually looks like, that makes it clear you're a professional bringing real expertise and not just a booking tool, that copy does its own filtering. The person who wants to do their own research and just keep you as a backup option reads it and kind of self selects out. And the person who actually wants what you're offering reads it and thinks, this is exactly what I've been looking for. You're not turning anyone away here. You're just being clear enough about what you do that the wrong people don't waste your time and the right people get excited to reach out. Okay, so let me talk about the hero section for a second. The very first thing someone sees when they land on your homepage, because honestly, this is where most of the filtering happens. And it's where the everybody equals nobody problem shows up the most. You've got a really small window here. People are deciding fast. Am I in the right place or do I keep looking? I think the research on this says it's somewhere between 5 and 15 seconds. Err on the side of caution. Give them 5 seconds. You know, what they see in that window is vague, or if it's just a pretty photo with a tagline that doesn't actually say anything, there's a real chance they're gone. What you need above the fold is a clear answer to three things. Who do you help? With what? And what do they get out of it? That's really it. Toss in a fourth. How do they get it? Your call to action. You don't need anything clever. You don't need an inspirational quote about travel, just something clear and honest about who you are and who you're for. And there's a simple test I like for this. Have someone who doesn't know your business, your spouse, a friend, whoever, pull up your homepage. Give them 10 seconds, then close it and ask, what does this person do and who do they help? If they can answer that clearly, your hero section's doing its job. And if they can't, if they say something like travel stuff or I'm not really sure, that's the everybody equals nobody rule right there. Your copy isn't telling anyone who it's for. And if it's not telling anyone who it's for, it's probably not making anyone feel like they found the right place either. And I want to be clear on this. That's not a design problem. A nicer photo is not going to fix it. A new font's not going to fix it. It's a copywriting problem. The words just aren't doing the job yet. And one more thing I want to bring up, how your personal travel experience fits into all of this. Most travel advisors have been places, a lot of places actually. And that's part of what makes you good at this. You've stayed at the resorts you recommend. You've been on the ships. You know which rooms to ask for and which ones to avoid, what the food's actually like, whether the excursions are worth the money. That kind of experience is genuinely meaningful to potential clients. They want to know you've actually done that legwork, that you're not just reading brochures, that your recommendation is coming from somewhere real. But a lot of advisors either don't mention this or they mention it in a way that just doesn't land. Avid traveler in a bio. I mean, everyone says that at this point. It's basically invisible. It doesn't tell me anything useful about you. What actually lands is specificity. Not I've traveled extensively, but something like I've been on 14 different cruise ships across 6 lines, and I've got pretty strong opinions about which ones are actually worth it for which kinds of travelers. That's specific. That's useful. That makes someone go, okay, this person's actually done something I haven't. and can't really do myself. That's worth something to me. Or if you've got deep destination knowledge, I've been to the Greek islands 7 times. I know the difference between them well enough to tell you which ones you'd love and which ones you'd probably want to skip. And I genuinely love helping people figure out how to put that trip together. Somebody thinking about Greece reads that and wants to talk to you immediately, not because you said you love travel, because you said something specific enough to actually be credible. That's the everybody equals nobody rule applied to your credentials. Avid traveler, that's for everybody. 14 cruise ships, that's for the person who wants to book a cruise and wants to know you actually know your stuff. And that person is going to find you because of that one sentence. Okay, so let me give you something practical here because I think it's a lot more useful to have an actual process than to just sit with the idea of it. If you're listening and thinking, yeah, I think my copy might be doing this everybody equals nobody thing, here's how I'd go about fixing it. First question: does my copy describe a specific person in a specific situation? Not travelers, not people who love adventures, not anyone planning a special trip, an actual real person with an actual real problem. If you read your homepage and you can't picture a specific human being in your head, that's where you start. Write down your last 3 clients who were just a great fit. What did they have in common? What were they dealing with when they found you? What were they worried about? That's your starting point right there. Next, go through your emails, your early conversations. You're looking for the phrases people actually used when they were in the situation you solve. Not the polished version. We want the raw version. I have no idea where to start. Every time I look into it, I get more confused. I just want someone to tell me what to do. Write those down. Those phrases belong in your website. Then look at your homepage, your about page. Ask yourself, does this start with me or does this start with them? If the first thing someone reads is your background, your love of travel, try flipping the opening so it starts with their situation instead. Not, I'm a travel advisor with 15 years of experience, but more like, if you've been trying to plan this trip for 6 months and you keep hitting walls, here's what that usually looks like and why it happens. Start there. Earn the right to talk about yourself after that. And then we're going to run the 10-second test. Find someone who hasn't seen your site, show them the homepage for 10 seconds, close it, and ask what you do and who you help. Their answer is going to tell you everything. Vague answer, vague copy. If they can describe a specific kind of person, then you know you're on the right track. So after that, go through your bio, your about section, and find every spot where you've used vague language, experienced, passionate, avid traveler, and ask whether you can swap it in for something specific, a number, a destination, a strong opinion, maybe a specific bit of knowledge. Specificity is what makes you sound credible. The more specific you get, the more real you sound. And none of this requires some massive rewrite, by the way. A lot of it is small stuff, shifting the opening, swapping a vague phrase for a specific one, adding a line that actually describes the situation your clients are in. But all those small things add up. And honestly, the difference between a site where people feel like they've found the right place and a site where people just kind of move on, a lot of that comes down to whether your copy is following the everybody equals nobody rule or if it's breaking it. The everybody equals nobody rule isn't really a copywriting thing, it's a client getting thing. The way you write about what you do determines who shows up in your inbox. And if the copy is broad, the inquiries are going to be kind of random, some great fits, some not. And you spend a lot of time on calls just trying to sort out which is which. But when the copy is specific, when it describes a real person and a real situation using real language, the right people find it, and it feels like you already know them. And that feeling is really hard to manufacture with sales tactics or follow-up sequences or any of that stuff. It either comes from the copy or it doesn't. And here's the thing, this isn't really just a website problem. The way you write on your site is usually how you write in your emails, your social captions, your inquiry responses, all of it. The everybody equals nobody rule shows up everywhere. So fixing it on your site tends to sharpen everything else too. Your site's the first place most people are going to encounter you, and it's doing a job, filtering, positioning, building trust, whether you've thought about it that way or not. The only real question is whether it's doing that job on purpose. If you want to get into the weeds on any of this for your own site, that's honestly kind of exactly what I do. Head to the website, book a call, grab a time that works for you. It's a lot easier to see what's working and what's not when we're actually looking at it together. All right, there's a lot more on this channel about how your site is either working for you or quietly working against you. Subscribe for that. I'm Justin Hinkle, and this is the Travel Advisor Website Show.